Since 1934, Iowa's farmers have turned to the Iowa Farm Bureau Spokesman as their trusted news source. Now, the Spokesman Speaks. Listen in and hear from leading experts on topics important to farmers and agriculture. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our March 3rd edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler, and today's episode features two guests to help you prepare for the 2025 growing season. First, we'll bring on Angie Horn, who's a regional crop consultant for Farm Bureau Financial Services, and she's going to walk us through the things farmers should keep in mind as they make their crop insurance decisions this month. Then, we'll bring on Melissa Miller of the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative, and she's going to share a new online tool to help farmers calculate their optimum nitrogen application rates. Let's start with Angie Horn, who recently touched base with Spokesman editor Tom Block to discuss farmers' crop insurance options in 2025.
Angie, crop insurance is one of the most important risk management tools for our farmers, and it seems like there are more options and decisions this year than ever before. Let's start with a general overview of the program, talk about the sign-up deadline, and what are some of the most popular options that farmers should consider this year between all the different coverages they have.
Absolutely, you are correct. Crop insurance is the most vital thing you can do to protect your operation and your livelihood. Everyone knows the crop insurance deadline's coming up here March 15th. Revenue protection is the most popular in our area. That allows you to guarantee a price coverage. The price coverage was set the month of February. It's based on Chicago Board of Trade daily averages. And that will allow you to cover a revenue aspect of your APH, which is your actual production history. So you take your actual production history times the coverage that you choose to elect times the spring price that we just elected.
Now, there are some important changes to the program this year, so it may be a good idea for farmers to investigate more instead of just doing what they've always done. What's new with the program this year?
Absolutely, yes. Lots of changes this year. One of the biggest changes that we have this year is it's the ECO, which is Enhanced Coverage Option. It is a subsidy increase. So this product has been around for a while. However, this year they decided to increase the government subsidy from 44% to 65%. So that is a dramatic increase, and this is a good option to kind of spread out your risk. And with that subsidy increase, it may be an option that you have not looked at before. Definitely makes the premium a little bit more affordable.
And what are some of the considerations when purchasing that ECO, the enhanced coverage, or SCO, the supplemental coverage option? How do the products work together? And I know it allows you to basically insure different percentages of your revenue. So explain that a little bit, how that all works.
Lots of acronyms, but one thing to keep in mind is you can kind of mix and match. And what I definitely recommend is what's right for my operation is not going to be right for somebody else's operations. Definitely sit down with your crop insurance agent and go over all of the farm programs and go over these options, because this is a conversation that we haven't had before. Very important that you have it this year. So with that being said, if you're enrolled in Ark County, which was very popular when the Farm Bill came out, you're not eligible for SCO because that's also considered a county product. So if you have your corns in Ark County currently, you're not able to have the SCO conversation. What you're going to want to do is see if that's even going to be an option for you. And then if it is, look at the numbers, and then you're going to want to contact your FSA office and change to PLC, which is that price loss coverage. The reason why you can't have both is it's considered a county product. So you can't double dip. Ark County is a county product, and then so is SCO. So you can only have one for the county you're in. If you're a producer in multiple counties, you can have Ark County in one county and not in the other. And you can also, it's per county, per commodity. So you can have Ark County for beans, PLC for corn. Again, lots of options, lots of acronyms. Highly recommend that you sit down and talk with your crop insurance agent. Also would recommend maybe contacting your FSA and getting your 156EZ form. And what that shows is all of your elections. So it shows all of your farms and what you're currently enrolled in. And that's a good place to start to see what you're eligible at, what you're not, and you're able to make changes to your FSA enrollment up until they just changed it now to April 15th. So you can contact your FSA office until April 15th. March 15th is still the crop insurance deadline.
Yeah, there's really an interplay there between crop insurance and your farm bill government program. So it's important really for farmers to look at all those different options and how they interplay together, again, to get that revenue protection level that makes the most sense, right?
Absolutely, yes, because it may work in one county, it may not work in another county. Again, look at the numbers. Your crop insurance has access to tools and information readily available to them that they're able to walk you through, show you the numbers, help you make that decision on your own. You know, your operation, again, I've said it before, is completely different than your neighbors.
Now, in addition to these products we've talked about with the ECO and SEO, there are some other options out there, including some unsubsidized products that Farm Bureau offers. Why might these tools be a good option for farmers to at least take a look at?
There are some additional products out there. One of them would be MPO, and that's the market price option. What that allows you to do is kind of lock in trading days or to buy additional coverage. So our spring price is set, and what you can do is you can add a value onto that. So you can add 25 cents on. This would be a product that I would recommend to the heavy marketers, the guys that are watching the board daily doing tradings. You know, they've kind of leveraged, they've sold as much as they can. That's who I would recommend this to. Or also it would be a good fit for those that are kind of heavy leveraged out there. You know, they have a high cost per acre and they need to protect as much as they can.
With so many scenarios and options, you mentioned this, it's important to sit down with your crop insurance. What tools do you folks have to help farmers decide? Can you walk them through specific scenarios? Are there calculators and things like that? And how has that whole decision-making process gone about?
Yes. Here at Farm Bureau, we have lots of tools available. One of my favorite tools that we have, it's called the Historical Coverage Analyzer. So what it allows us to do as agents, it pulls up your history on your operation, and then it goes back and it shows you can choose 5, 10, 15-year historical data on what the scenarios would have paid, what you would have paid if you would have collected, if you wouldn't have collected, to kind of get that hindsight. And then we also can kind of reverse it and have the conversation of where do we think the market's going to go? So we can have this interactive conversation of, all right, is the market going to go up? Is it going to fall out? You know, what's it going to do? And so we can plug those numbers in as we're having a conversation. We can show the graphs. We can show what we think the indemnity would be, what the premium would be, if this scenario happens, if this scenario happens, just to kind of answer all of those what if questions to give you that peace of mind.
And I want to put a plug in here. You and one of your colleagues did a webinar that's available on the Farm Bureau website to go and view, where you do go through some of those options to help people maybe understand some of the way things interplay with each other. You or your colleague mentioned the reason for these different options is you may have a farm, a lot of these are based on county averages, but your farm may be not tracking with the county average. And so that's where some of these choices can really make an individual decision.
Absolutely. I had one scenario yesterday where the producer's farm did not track at all with the county. He was on the other side of it. His ground wasn't as good as what the average county is. So he was looking at these county products then to help cover that price. You know, with these products, we can cover up to 95% of what our spring price is. So that's what he was looking at. You know, the county yields are higher than what he's currently expecting given his ground. So that would be a good option for him. It also can work the other way, where if you're tracking higher than the county average, you may want to put your risk, your eggs into your own personal basket where you're covering your farm operation. You need to worry about your bills. Your yields are stronger than the county average. So that's what you want to insure the most of. So again, kind of like you said, each scenario is different. I wish there was an easy button. There's definitely not when it comes to crop insurance. And I feel like this year with the subsidy increase, there's a lot more options, a lot more conversations to be had.
Angie, thanks so much for your time. Again, as we wrap up here, Why is crop insurance and the choices farmers are making especially important this year? And again, that reminder, it's important to take a second look instead of doing what you've always done.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it on the head there. Just take a second look. Have some fresh eyes on it. There's new products. I know a lot of producers just kind of go with the same thing over and over again. Highly recommend that you have somebody else look at it, have a second review, sit down, have a conversation. This year is really important because we all are aware markets are not there. You want to cover as much as you can and be able to keep farming, keep the legacy going. And crop insurance helps you protect your livelihood and your risk management.
With the March 15th deadline to purchase crop insurance just around the corner, now is a good time to review your options and confirm that you're making the right choice for your farm in 2025. We'll also echo Angie's recommendation to sit down with your crop insurance agent if you haven't done so already. We've also linked to an in-depth webinar on this topic down in the notes for this podcast episode, so be sure to check that out too when you're done listening here. Next up is Melissa Miller, who serves as the project director for the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative, a public-private partnership to give farmers the data and tools they need to choose the best nitrogen fertilizer rates for their farms. With more on that, here's Spokesman reporter Bob Beyond with Melissa Miller.
Well, let's begin with a little bit of your background and some history about the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative. There's really some important work being done there.
Absolutely. So the Iowa Nitrogen Initiative, or the INI, as I'll call it the rest of the time here, it's a collaborative public-private partnership, and we're focused on generating the best nitrogen science in the world for Iowans, and we do that through on-farm nitrogen rate trials. So we are finding and working to understand the optimum nitrogen rate on hundreds of different trials across the state of Iowa. Now, I've worked in ag and environmental research at Iowa State since 2012, and I joined the INI as project director in 2022. This is right as we were scaling up these efforts to conduct these on-farm nitrogen rate trials across the state. So in the past 2 years, to give you an idea of the scale, we've worked with nearly 200 Iowa farmers to execute almost 1,000 trials, and we have hundreds more in this upcoming growing season. So my job is to work with our partners in ag, like you at Farm Bureau, and the scientists here at Iowa State to make sure that these trials are easy to conduct for our farmer participants and that the results are getting into the hands of the people who need those results to make decisions.
Yeah, so today I thought we'd talk a little bit about the NFAC tool. What inspired the creation of this new tool, and what specific challenges in nitrogen management does it aim to address?
Well, nitrogen management is extremely complex, especially choosing the optimum rate, which is what we're focused on. So the optimum nitrogen fertilizer rate can vary significantly in the same field from one year to the next, and also from field to field in the very same year. So from the beginning of the INI, we always intended to release a benchmarking tool, a decision support tool that allows Iowans to interact directly with the information we're learning about these optimum N rates. So we worked with farmers and agronomists to develop NFAC over the last couple of years. We really started in February of 2023, meeting with farmers, meeting with CCAs to understand what they were looking for in a decision support tool and what would help them. And we've gone from there working with farmers along the way. And we just released it last week to some pretty good reception.
Would you mind walking us through how the NFAC works and how farmers can use it to optimize their nitrogen application?
Yeah, absolutely. So NFAC is two tools in one. One of the tools that we have is listing the optimum nitrogen rates for all of those hundreds of trials that we've conducted. So farmers in the state can click on their region. They can see what trials have been conducted. Right now, they can see what the crop rotation was for that trial and about the general location where it was, and they can see what their optimum nitrogen rate was, what the yield was, and then what their nitrogen use efficiency. So they can start to look at systems that are like theirs, farms that are like theirs, and compare their optimum nitrogen rate to those. So that's one tool. And then what I think we're really here to talk about is the calculator tool on the other side. And so this is where we can put in inputs related to our farms. So things like location and precipitation and crop rotation and things like that. And you can get a range of the optimum nitrogen rate and the modeled expected yield for that as well. This tool also allows you to play with the different inputs that you've selected, so you can see how each of those different inputs impact the optimum nitrogen rate. So what it really allows you to do is, yes, you get that recommended range, but then you can see how all of these different management factors and factors like the weather impact the optimum nitrogen rate. So you can consider that with what you know about nitrogen management on your farm and how that influences.
What makes the NFAC tool different from other nitrogen recommendation tools currently available? I think there's something out there now that's been kind of the standard for years, right? And maybe this can replace that?
Yeah, so one of the big differences is it's not really a recommendation tool. So a lot of it is about education, about what we're learning and how we can transfer that information to other people and help them make informed decisions. So it's going to provide a range for each scenario. When we talk about what's been available there so far, a lot of the time it doesn't have these hundreds of on-farm trials that we've done. So we have a lot of data that's going into this calculator. Previously, some other tools available, you would only select maybe 2 different inputs, but with all of the different scenarios that we have available, we went from 4 available scenarios in this state to over 21,000 potential scenarios. So it's allowing people to get a lot closer to their unique farm, their unique setup and system for farming in their location of the state.
Yeah, you talked about the trials that have been so critical. How do they contribute to the accuracy and effectiveness of this new tool? They're obviously critically important to its development.
Yes. So we use a cropping systems model called optimum on the calculator portion of this. And the on-farm trials that we're doing are helping to teach that model what's happening in real world situations. So the model lets us run thousands of different simulations across different weather years with crazy things like changing a planting date to say August 1st, and we can see how that inputs. We would never do that in the real world. So that's the benefit of having the model. But we have to teach the model to make it better. And so that's what we're doing with these on-farm nitrogen rate trials. Not only are we getting the optimum nitrogen rate and the yield at that optimum nitrogen rate, but we're also looking at different things like management. Like, is there a cover crop? Is it a tiled field? What was the tillage? Things like that we think probably impact the optimum nitrogen rate. And we can learn that once we teach the tool about it.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of these. The tool currently incorporates 6 key inputs. What are all 6 and why are they each important? And why did they jump to the forefront here in the initial rollout of the tool?
These inputs that we have, and I'll list them off for you, these are ones that we know, based on data we've collected, the science that we've done, make a difference to the optimum nitrogen rate. And that's why we chose these. So we have location, all 99 counties, as well as major land resource areas. So depending on how you want to categorize what your soil type is and things like that, so county or region. Crop rotation is obviously very important to your annual optimum nitrogen rate. The precipitation we expect in the spring and summer. How much soil nitrogen was left over that's going to be available for the upcoming crop year. So we call that residual soil nitrogen. The planting date makes a huge difference. And then as we're calculating the economic optimum nitrogen rate and not just the agronomic, we also need to know what you paid for fertilizer and what price you marketed your corn.
Yeah, so when you presented this at the Iowa Ag Expo, you mentioned that this is just version 1. So what future improvements or features do you hope to add? I think you mentioned there might be more possible inputs that will be part of this tool in the future.
Well, the truth is we could have hundreds of input into this tool. I mean, this cropping systems model that we're working with is truly amazing. We have to keep it manageable, of course. So one of the things that we're doing now after the release of version 1, as we look ahead to version 2 and 3 and 4 and so on, is looking at what makes the most difference in our on-farm research trials to the optimum nitrogen rate, but also what are Iowa farmers curious about? What do they think they've seen in their fields that they'd like to see incorporated into the tool? So these are things things like management decisions. I mentioned cover crops and residue harvest and tillage, but also the source of nitrogen. Does that make a big difference? Does the timing of nitrogen make a big difference? We can also look at farm attributes. So, we've released this at the county level, and we've already had some feedback that we're making some assumptions there, right? Like we're assuming the predominant soil type for the county, but I know I have this soil type that has this soil organic matter. So can we work that into the tool? Things like that. And then beyond just the nitrogen part of the tool, we've had some interest in folks wondering, can we do this with additional nutrients like P and K?
So in general, for farmers, if we look at this kind of from a 30,000 foot level, how does the NFAC tool help farmers balance productivity, environmental stewardship, and cost efficiency?
Well, as a farmer, I can tell you that we never want to over apply or under apply nitrogen. I mean, it impacts our bottom line, it impacts the environment. And so what NFAC can give farmers is the confidence to apply closer to the optimum rate, as well as understand how all of these different factors impact that. So they're making an informed decision about the rate that we're choosing every year, knowing that it's not going to cost us yield.
Partnerships have been crucial to the development of the NFAC tool. What role have these partnerships with farmers and private industry and organizations like Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship play in the success of the INI?
Well, we simply couldn't do this project without partnerships. Obviously, the partnerships with the farmers who are conducting the trials, but we wanted to create a product and create a project that was really going to meet the need of Iowa's farmers. And so it was so important for us to be able, from the very beginning, to work with Farm Bureau, to work with Iowa Corn and Iowa Soybean, and to work with the Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, all of these people that are impacting agriculture in the state, and get us all moving in the same direction. And so that's what we've seen throughout the last couple of years and what we see into the future.
Yeah, lots of feedback from partnerships and from farmers. So how has farmer feedback influenced the development and refinement of the NFAC tool?
Well, it's the most important feedback that we can get. So we've been at a couple of conferences. We went to the Agribusiness Showcase. We were at the Iowa Ag Expo. We have a lot of demos lined up with grower groups and with agronomists in the state, because getting that feedback, some of those changes we can make immediately, and some we can take in and think about what we're going to do in version 2. So it really drives everything that we do.
Yeah, so why is optimizing nitrogen use especially critical in today's ag economy? It's critical that we're doing the right things, and farmers are doing the right things. So in your view, optimizing nitrogen is very important.
It is extremely important for a number of different reasons. We look especially at our economic situation. It's a soft ag economy right now. We have a lot of unknowns, especially in trade and things like that. And nitrogen is, one of the most expensive inputs that we have. So the closer we can get on dialing into that optimum nitrogen rate in terms of our balance sheet is extremely important. You look at sustainable aviation fuels and carbon markets and things like that, where nutrient management is incredibly important to achieving what consumers are looking for. And so through projects like ours, we can help people understand what the right approach is for getting that nutrient management to a point where it meets standards.
Well, the number of farmers you have in these trials have just ballooned over the last couple of years, but I know you're always looking for more. So for farmers interested in participating in future field trials this year, next year, into the future, what should they know about the process? Who are you looking for? What kind of farmer, and how can they learn more and sign up?
Well, essentially, we're looking for every farmer. While a lot of on-farm trials or a lot of research, we get the idea that we can't have very many variables. Here, we actually would like as many variables as possible, because the model will thrive on different systems working into. We talk about all of the different decisions that can go into understanding the optimal nitrogen rate. That's what we're looking for. So, we have some growers who have several different fields enrolled in it because they're all managed a little bit differently. One has a different soil type than another, and another one is a corn soy rotation, and another one has a cover crop. Those are all really valuable. So short answer is everyone. In order to conduct the trial, we need you to be able to variable rate a nitrogen prescription. We write that prescription for you. It's no cost to the farmer. So you can just plug it into the applicator and go. And then we also ask for a calibrated yield monitor because we'll get those spatial yield files from you at the end of the growing season.
So should they contact you directly?
Yep, I'm step one. So you contact me. You can find my contact information if you go to NFACT. If you go to the website, there's a contact us form on there. There's a trial interest form you can find there, and it'll come straight to me, and I will get in touch with you, and we'll go from there.
Cool. So let's wrap up a little bit. Where do you see nitrogen management heading in the next 5 to 10 years, say? And how might tools like NFACT evolve?
The fact is, and what we've seen through these trials, is that Iowa farmers are already some of the most efficient nitrogen users in the world. And I think we'll continue to see that come to light through these trials. I think with the advances of precision agriculture and the improvement in cropping systems model, we'll be able to get more granular with NFACT. People would love to see sub-field recommendations, and I can't promise you that we'll be there in 5 years, but it's certainly something we can see going. Managing every acre is somewhere I can definitely see us going because we have the information available to us if we're willing to seek it out and to mobilize it.
Thanks, Melissa. No one's more interested in optimizing fertilizer use for production and environmental protection purposes than Iowa's farmers. So it's great to have a new tool that helps farmers make the best decisions for their fields. If you'd like to try the new NFACT calculator or contribute to the trials that will help make the calculator even more impactful over time, we've included the links you need down in the notes for this podcast episode. That's all for this edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us for our next episode on March 17th. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau, and thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.